Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has wrapped up a 4-day state visit to Singapore and the Philippines, placing future industries and strategic security front and center. The trip highlighted cooperation in artificial intelligence, nuclear energy, defense, and supply chains, sectors seen as critical to South Korea's next phase of growth. It's also unfolded against a backdrop of intensifying U.S. China competition and rising tensions in the South China Sea and growing concerns over global energy and logistics risks. With ASEAN increasingly important to Seoul's economic and security strategy, attention now turns to what these agreements truly mean, not just diplomatically, but for long-term economic resilience, regional stability, and new opportunities for Korean businesses. For a deeper discussion on this, we are joined here in the studio by Seong-Soo Eric Kim, adjunct professor at Yonsei Graduate School of Business and founder and CEO of Data Crunch Global. Very big welcome, Professor.
Thank you for having me tonight.
And also joining us online is Lee Jae-hyun, professor, principal fellow at Asan Institute for Policy Studies. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Lee.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's start with Professor Kim with the economic picture, of course. So President Lee has wrapped up his 4-day state visit to Singapore and the Philippines. Like I've said, how would you assess the economic outcomes of the latest visits?
So I think that we made very important dialogues between Korea and Singapore and also Korea and Philippines. To summarize, we focused on AI collaboration and SMR collaboration, and also green economy, and also some defense discussions with Philippines. So I think that it's very important because we're focusing on Southeast Asia, which we need to strategically partner with. Our view of the world is more focused on United States or China or Europe, but we have to recognize the importance of collaborating with Southeast Asia. Especially Southeast Asia is very favorable to Korea because of K-pop. And now I think that we have to leverage that relationship to a more stronger science and economic partnership.
Do you also see it as a shift in South Korea's current economic strategy?
Yes, I think that our economic strategy, as I mentioned before, is very focused to United States and China and also Europe. But because of the U.S. China conflict, we have to diversify our economic partners. It's very risky to concentrate in a couple of countries because the geopolitics is shifting, as we see in the U.S.-Iran war, and also our experience from the pandemic and the Ukraine-Russian war. So the global supply chain is changing and the economic territory is changing. So according to the change of the world, there's a higher need to diversify our economic portfolio. So in that sense, I think that's a good strategical shift and focus.
So kind of an economic pivot adapting to the current uncertain geopolitical situation. Now, when we turn to defense and security, Dr. Lee, what would you identify as the key achievements in that sector? You know, in particular, the Philippines is South Korea's largest defense partner in Southeast Asia. How has mutual trust between the two been built over time?
So I guess your question has got two different elements. First, the most important achievement in the summit between Korea and the Philippines. And the second part is the trust building between Korea and the Philippines. Right. Let me answer the second part first. The trust building, especially in the area of defense and security cooperation between Korea and the Philippines, it goes all the way back to Korean War, when the Philippines sent troops to the Korean War. And the Philippines was the first Asian country to send their troops to the Korean War. But the current wave of security and defense cooperation between Korea and the Philippines, it started in the 1990s when South Korea first transferred some old Navy ships to the Philippines. And then Philippines started to buy new naval ships from Korean companies like HD Hyundai and so on. And even the Philippines acquired new jet fighters like FA-50, and the cooperation even spread out to the non-traditional security area between the Coast Guard of the two countries. And now today we see a lot of high-level exchange between the Ministry of Defense of the two countries and also the high level of two militaries. The first question about the key achievement in this meeting between President Lee Jae-myung and the Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The most significant development was that there was MOU between the two countries that South Korea will participate in the military modernization program of the Philippines, which is called Horizon, which is in the third phase. And it opens new opportunity for South Korea to transfer more naval ships as well as the state-of-the-art aircraft to the Philippine Air Force.
Right, so these kinds of exchanges continuing from decades before, it definitely dealt a big blow in building trust between the two countries. Now to Professor Kim, let's turn to supply chains and trade. Of course, Korea and Singapore plan to upgrade their FTA, one of the biggest accomplishments at this latest summit, especially in supply chains and green economy, of course. With U.S. and China rivalry reshaping global trade, how significant is this supply chain cooperation?
So the Korea-Singapore Free Trade Agreement was, concluded 20 years ago, when Korea used to do direct trades with China, and also at that time Singapore was not the significant logistic hub in Southeast Asia as it has the position right now. So a lot of things have changed over the 2 decades. So the bilateral, agreement towards a new free trade agreement is trying to incorporate that reality, especially China, because of the U.S. China conflict. China is detouring exports through Singapore, which is a significant volume. So those kind of reality, and over the 20 years, green economy has become a really big agenda. So how do we incorporate that into FTA is also a big discussion. To make it as a reality, we also have to take in mind of the U.S. Tariff policies and how it unfolds with other countries. Because ultimately, even though we build a supply chain friendly FTA with Singapore, most of their trade volumes are detouring through Singapore. So still the FTA issue with the United States will limit what we can do. So we have to take a close watch of how the situation unfolds.
Right, definitely. The trade war from the United States, it's really dealing a big blow to many countries. We'll have to keep close tabs on that. But shifting gears a little bit, with rising tensions in the South China Sea and growing risks to sea lanes, energy, and logistics, Dr. Lee, how important is cooperation between South Korea and ASEAN, and how can this relationship be strengthened?
Okay, let me first emphasize the importance of the South China Sea and the sea route in the Southeast Asia for South Korea's economy. And our seaborne trade and a lot of portion of energy import actually passes through the South China Sea. So if there's any military clash in the South China Sea, we will see another big kind of a crisis, energy and oil crisis that we faced many years ago. And as you know, the current war and the military action happening in Iran, it puts a lot of pressure on South Korea's economy. And if there's any problem in the South China Sea, the same situation will repeat, I guess. The middle power cooperation to keep the peace and stability in the South China Sea. A lot of people actually talk about middle power cooperation, but nobody really comes out with a clear alternative how to keep it. We have to remember this. The Philippines, Singapore, whole Southeast Asia, as well as South Korea, or even Japan and Australia, these middle powers in the Pacific, they all achieved their democracy and economic development under the what we call rules-based order, which keeps lead on the big powers' unilateral behavior in the region. So anyhow, we have to remember that this maintaining and sustaining rules-based order is very important. If we have agreement on this keeping rules-based order in the region, it may have keeping peace and stability in the South China Sea as well. And as far as South Korea is concerned, what is really important is that the South Korea have to show its political will to make a genuine contribution for the peace and security in the region. I'm not saying that South Korea has to involve directly and militarily in the South China Sea problem, but there are many ways. For example, enhancing the military capability of the ASEAN countries so that they can manage their own national security issues. That's one of the ways. So it is very important for South Korea to keep that promise and the political momentum to engage in the defense and security of Southeast Asian countries.
So middle power cooperation and coordination seems increasingly vital at this point. Now, Dr. Lee, we are aware that the South Korea and Philippines, they share a long history. And like you've said, the Philippines deployed troops for South Korea during the war. Now, nowadays, defense ties are also expanding beyond arms sales to broader security cooperation. What do you think is needed to make that sustainable? And do you think this trip helped deepen that kind of trend?
Yeah, of course. As I mentioned, in this trip to Philippines, President Lee Jae-myung made defense and the defense industry cooperation a kind of central agenda of the bilateral cooperation. And then there are ways for South Korea and the Philippines to put their hands together to keep that momentum of defense and security cooperation. For example, South Korea has got the advanced defense industry technology, and it is a good idea to transfer this technology to the Philippines as well as some Southeast Asian countries. If we transfer the defense technology to the ASEAN countries, it may have impact on the manufacturing sector of those countries so that they can even make their economic growth. And the second point is also the what we call MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhaul. As I mentioned, there are quite a number of naval ships and aircraft we transport to Southeast Asian countries, and it needs maintenance, repair, and overhaul. This kind of after-service actions, and this will further enhance defense and security cooperation between Korea and Southeast Asian countries. Of course, some people talk about the military exercise, but that kind of options was not debated in the summit. But anyhow, through all this effort, the further strategic trust can be built between Korea and Southeast Asian countries. So yeah, that is the kind of option we have.
But these kinds of expansion, they also bring some kind of economic and diplomatic risks as well, Dr. Lee, especially when it comes to China. So how far do you think South Korea should go strategically, and where is the right balance between economic interests and a strategic engagement?
Oh, that's a very tricky question. That's a kind of $1 million question. If I have that answer, a clear answer, wow. Basically, yeah, of course, if South Korea deepens defense and security cooperation with the Philippines, it has got implication for the situation in the South China Sea, and of course, there's a chance for China to make a response to that kind of action done by South Korea. But what South Korea has to do is to making our position known in the region clearly. And we have to keep that position for quite a long time so that the regional countries recognize that South Korea has been taking that sort of position, strategic position in the South China Sea for a long time. If I repeat the point that I made earlier, I'm not talking about the South Korea has to send their naval ships or aircraft to South China Sea, because South Korea is not a claimant country in the South China Sea dispute. So what we can do is to help Southeast Asian countries to enhance their military capability, especially naval and air force capability, so that they can take care of their own sovereignty and national interest in the South China Sea. That's what South Korea has to do.
So providing indirect support could be a way of balancing the situation. Now, another major theme of this latest trip was AI, of course. Professor Kim, what strengths do you think South Korea and Singapore would bring to the AI sector?
So both countries have something similar. We're strong in software. We have the best schools like KAIST and Seoul National University. In Korea, Singapore has National University of Singapore and Nanyang Technology University, etc. We have great talents. What Singapore is missing is the manufacturing sector. We have the best manufacturing industry in the world. So when it comes to physical AI, Singapore needs a lot of help from South Korea because they do not have the manufacturing base. So they do not have anywhere to apply such physical AI technology. So basically, Korea has to manufacture and co-develop the physical AI domain with Singapore. Also, even if it's not physical AI, because two countries are very strong in software engineering, there's a lot of collaboration that we can see in LLM and other type of AI, especially in the race of AI. We can cooperate because Korea or Singapore cannot do it by itself. I think its better model is to cooperate and build a strong AI model together.
But when AI is also seen as a security asset in that kind of context, do you think the ways of cooperation could change?
So, of course, there's something that we would not like to share with each other. But, what we mean by collaboration AI is naturally going to evolve into a kind of a stronger economic tie and a security tie, because AI is now a new asset, national asset. That's the reason why we're talking about sovereign AI, and we're trying to cultivate the AI industry. So by developing the AI together means that we're really strengthening the relationship. So it has to naturally evolve into some kind of a security framework to have this more realized, I think.
It would even build more trust between the two
Yes.
countries. Now, so looking at the outcomes of the latest trip by President Lee Jae-myung, Professor Kim, how can the outcomes of this trip create real opportunities for Korean companies and startups as well? And what actually needs to happen for these kinds of benefits to spread beyond large conglomerates?
Okay, so Singapore is a really good test bed for Korean companies, I think, and also a collaborative, partner to go global. We were very much focused on the U.S. market when we were talking about going global for startups, especially. But Singapore is the Asia HQ for a lot of large tech companies, say Apple, Google, Facebook, Meta, and et cetera. And they have the capability to widespread it globally because the Asia HQs are there. And so I think that it's a good collaborative model to have Korean startups to work with Singapore more closely to practice how to become truly a global company. It's kind of hard for Korean companies to directly enter the US market and try to become a global company. Singapore, we share a lot of Asian values, and it's much more friendlier for Korean companies to practice being global. So I think that angle should be done immediately. Then we need a lot of government support in that domain. Bilaterally, Singapore, we can discuss visa and talent exchange. And also Singapore has a really good source of investment. So co-investing into Korean startups will help the development of this relationship, I think.
So we'll hope for this to be a good opportunity for South Korean startups and the small companies as well, looking forward. But we'll have to conclude our discussion right here tonight. Thank you so much for your insights, Professor Kim.
Thank you very much.
And of course, Dr. Lee, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.